State of Michigan versus Charlie Bothwell and Monique Dillard Bothwell. Case number 155666. And we left with Mr. Dillard during his voir dire of Dr. Nazar. And so, Mr. Dillard, I've had a sidebar with the attorneys, and so during that sidebar, there were some issues that were brought to my attention with respect to questions that Mr. Dillard was asking of this particular witness. It has been brought to my attention, although I have not seen a report, and the report has not been entered into evidence, that this witness may be proper to give an opinion with respect to some issues about the psychology of the victim, the dermatology of the victim, and some other areas. And so at this point, Mr. Dillard, I am going to allow you to continue with your questioning. You may do so at this time.
Thank you so much, Judge. Madam, is Arabic your native language?
Objection.
Okay, now, we've already gone through that. We're not going backwards. We're going forward. Your next question.
Okay, you took one, during your MBBS degree in Jordan, Amman, you took one course in gastroenterology in 1997 in Saudi Arabia? One course? As a part of your MBBS?
Yes, that's
Okay. Now, and you also took one course.
Mr. Dillard, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'll need you to bring the microphone. What have they done to my microphone?
Attach microphones to a judge.
Okay. All right. I'll need you to speak directly into the microphone so that I can hear what you're saying.
Okay, Your
Pardon
Honor.
my interruption. Mr. Dillard, you may proceed.
And you, during your MBBS, you took one course in pediatrics in 1997 in Saudi Arabia, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, your medical license in the United States was restricted between the year 2000 and 2005, was it not?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, am I correct that you got your license by means of application to the Michigan State Board of Medicine?
Yes, I applied for my medical license.
It was not by endorsement.
No, I went through the normal process, which is through application.
Okay. And I'm correct that you're not board certified in dermatology.
That's right.
You're not board certified in psychology.
That's right.
You're not board certified in sociology.
That's correct.
You're not board certified in osteopathic medicine.
Objection, Your Honor. Again, board certification is actually not, my objection is that it's not relevant to qualifications as to testify as an expert. In other words, you can be an expert in an area without being board certified. She has already testified that's what she's board certified in. To go through a list of what she's not board certified in is irrelevant. She said what she's board certified in. The question before the court is she qualified to testify as an expert in an area?
Ms. Goldfarb, during our sidebar, I indicated to the parties if she has testified as to what she's certified in. Now, Mr. Dillard, you're asking her questions about other certifications, and she's testified as to this is the only things that I'm certified in. But just remember, when there's testimony that's sought about other areas that she's not certified in, it may create some issues. So let's keep moving.
All right, thank you, Judge.
And may I respond or not?
No.
Okay.
We're moving on. Continue.
Okay, all right. Understanding the judge's argument, I'm not argument, but ruling, I understand. Okay, so I'll dismiss with those for the moment. Let's now, I like to go to the methodology that you use to form opinions. These questions will go to that.
Objection, Your Honor. That is not part of voir dire, which is qualification to offer an opinion. Methodology is not part of that. This has to do with her qualifications, educational certifications, and board certifications.
Mr. Dillard?
The Daubert standard provides for three parts to an expert being allowed to testify. Qualifications is only one arm of that. Competency and relevancy. The methodology that a doctor uses is highly relevant to whether or not that doctor is competent to make an opinion on a certain topic.
Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it. Answer the
Thank
question.
you. Okay, now I'm going to ask you some questions about methodology. Am I correct that your methodology that you use to form your opinions, you in this case, or in looking at the child in this case, you only looked at medical records, correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay. You looked at medical records. You look at the interviews of the state of Michigan.
Hold on, Mr. Dillard. You cut the witness off when she answered your question. She indicated that no, that's not all that she looked at. So now I need your next question.
Okay. Is medical records a part of that methodology?
Yes, it is.
Is looking at the interviews of the state of the FBI part of that methodology?
Yes, it is.
Is looking at the interviews of the what's it called, the kids? Who do you work for? Kids Talk?
The Kids Talk Children's Advocacy Center.
Looking at the interview of Kids Talk, is that part of the methodology?
Objection. And I'm sorry, Your Honor, but and I understand this. If this is a daughter hearing, that's one thing. But he has not asked for a daughter hearing. I've asked her to be qualified as expert. Whether or not she looked at the Kids Talk, she is qualified to testify. Whether she's qualified to testify as an expert has nothing to do whatsoever with what she may or may not have.
And Madam Prosecutor, with respect to that objection, Mr. Dillard, you will have the opportunity to cross-examine this witness as to what she did in this specific case. Let's stick with her qualifications and her competency, because now you're getting into what did she do specifically in reference to this case, and this is not the appropriate time to do so. So let's keep moving.
Methodology, Judge.
Mr. Dillard,
okay,
I've made my ruling. Let's keep moving.
Is your methodology scientific?
Yes, it is.
Okay. It can be tested objectively by others?
Do you mind clarifying that question?
Okay. I asked you, was your methodology scientific?
Objection,
And you
Your
answered
Honor.
yes.
Hold on.
Objection, Your Honor. We're asking for her to offer an opinion. And the question makes no sense. Can your methodology be tested by others? Is not a rational question in that we're offering her as an expert in certain areas.
And I'm going to sustain that objection. Mr. Dillard, your next question.
Do you know what the rate of error is on your methodology?
Objection, Your
Sustained.
Honor.
Your next question dealing with her competency and her area of expertise, or that she's offering.
What authority do you rely upon to substantiate your methodology that's accepted in general pediatrics?
Objection, Your Honor.
Mr. Dillard, where are we going with this? Specifically with respect to her knowledge and her competency. Let's keep moving. You're wasting the court's time. That objection is sustained. Your next question.
Did you personally interview the child?
No, I did not.
Did you personally interview the parents?
No, I did not.
Did you personally interview Monique Dillard Boffin?
No, I did not.
Did you personally interview Charles Boffin the fourth?
No, I did not.
Did you personally interview the FBI agent?
No, I did not interview the FBI
Did
agent.
you personally interview the kids agent?
I have no idea what that means.
The
Objection.
kids talk.
Objection,
Kids
Your
talk.
Honor.
What's your objection? What's the basis
It's
of your
not
objection?
relevant whether she will tell us when she testifies as to the basis
She
of her
will.
opinion.
Sustained. Your next question.
Did you read the police report?
No, I did not read the police report.
Did you read any of the interviews of the witnesses?
No, I did not read any of the interviews
Your
of
Honor,
witnesses.
objection once again. The witness interviews are not relevant to her opinion as a pediatrician or a child abuse pediatrician.
So, and I'm sustaining your objection, Mr. Dillard. These questions are not appropriate at this point. Would you please voir dire the witness if there are any challenges with respect to her as to her expertise, and then let's move on.
All right. Can you tell me what specifically you did to formulate your opinion?
Are you asking in particular about this case?
Yes.
Okay. In this case, I was able to review the medical records from Children's Hospital of Michigan. I was also able to review the...
All right, Your Honor, I'm going to object once again.
And I'm going to sustain the objection once again. Your next question.
Did you look at the medical records of Riverview Hospital?
I looked at medical records.
Objection, Your Honor. I think, what is the difference between the question you just sustained and
Sustained. Your next question.
Are you aware of the qualifications of the FBI agent?
Objection, Your Honor.
Counsel, you need to ask some relevant questions. You are wasting the court's time.
Well,
Ask relevant questions. Your objection is sustained. And if you want to just keep doing this all day, let's do it, Mr. Dillard.
Well-
But I'm really hoping that you will start asking some relevant questions so we can keep moving. Your next question.
how much were you paid to testify today?
$0.
Okay. Are you an employee of Kids Talk?
Yes, I am.
How much was Kids Talk paid for you to testify?
They were not paid anything for me to testify.
Was DMC paid any money?
No, they were not.
Was Wayne State University paid any money?
No, they were not.
How many times have you testified on behalf of the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office?
Objection, Your Honor. She's not testifying on behalf of the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. Her testimony is being offered by the
So then
prosecutor.
she can answer the question. How many times? None?
None.
Thank you. Next question.
How many times have you testified at Frank Murphy Hall of Justice?
I don't remember how many times, approximately 10 times or 15 times.
And were all of those in criminal cases?
Yes.
Do you know how many convictions?
Objection,
No,
not relevant.
Not relevant. Sustained.
And were you subpoenaed by the Wayne County, in those 10 criminal cases, were you subpoenaed by the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office?
Yes, I was.
Were you subpoenaed in this case?
Yes, I was.
Are you familiar with the torture standards for the United Nations?
Objection, Your Honor.
How is that relevant, counsel?
Okay. Judge, I just want to indicate at the appropriate time, I will make the appropriate objection.
You can make the appropriate objection at the appropriate time. Come on, counsel. How much more of this are we doing?
All right, I'm done, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith?
Real briefly, Judge.
Real briefly, thank you.
Judge, for the record, this board
This is Mr. Smith. It's still voir dire
Okay.
of Dr. Nazar, and Mr. Smith is on behalf of Mr. Bakel.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
You indicated you testified 10 times, correct?
I said I'm not really sure about the number. It's probably about 10 to 15 times, but I'm honestly not sure about the number.
Okay, do you remember the last time you testified?
No, I don't.
It's been quite some time.
I'm not sure about the date.
Okay, do you remember any of this, were you qualified as an expert in those cases?
Yes, I'm usually qualified as an expert in general pediatrics and in child abuse pediatrics in the cases that I testify for.
When you say generally, is that every single time, or does it vary from time to time?
It's every single time.
Right. Have you ever been qualified at anything other than what you've been qualified, what you're being proposed to be qualified for today?
Sometimes they qualify me in different areas of child abuse pediatrics, for example, child sexual abuse or child physical abuse, depending on the case, or child neglect. But it's all under the same subspecialty of child abuse pediatrics.
Objection, Your Honor, on behalf of Monique Botho. She indicated that she testified on behalf of certain physical opinions as to children, and I asked a series of questions related to physical injuries, and I was not allowed to explore those, so I have an objection.
And at the appropriate time during her testimony, you certainly can object to any testimony, but this counsel asked the question, and she said she's been qualified as a child abuse pediatrics, dealing with physical injuries. You may continue.
And when was that? Do you remember the case?
I've been qualified in all the cases that I testified in, but I really don't have the date. I can provide it to you at a further date, but I don't have it on me right now.
Okay, so there were other times when you've been qualified as an expert in
Yes.
other areas of what you've been asked to be qualified for today.
That's right.
And have you ever been asked to testify, have you been paid to testify for a defendant?
No, I haven't.
Have you ever found that in any of your cases that you've handled, have you ever looked at it and said, I don't think there's any child abuse?
Yes.
Do you remember the name of the case?
No, I don't remember the child's name, but that's part of what I do as a child abuse pediatrician, is that I differentiate those cases that are child abuse versus those that are not child abuse. So part of my job is to look at different kids with different injuries and to determine whether it is child abuse or it's an accident or something that might look like child abuse.
And in those cases, it sounds to me like you actually looked at the person. Have you ever looked at the person that's been allegedly abused, or interviewed them, or saw them, or touched them in any way?
Yes.
Okay. And is that frequently what you do?
Yes, this is what I do.
So they bring a child into you, and you take a look at the child. You personally talk to the child?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
And is that the preferred method that you would choose over not seeing the child?
It depends on the case. So there are some cases that I do talk with the child. There are some cases that we rely on a forensic interview. There are cases that I review the medical records. So it really depends on the case.
Okay. And you keep a record of all the different patients you have?
Yes, I do.
And you keep a record of all the different cases you testified?
Yes, most of them I do.
But, when you say most of them, would there be a reason why you wouldn't keep records of someone you testified for?
I usually keep the subpoenas, and then the records, a lot of them I just shred because I do have access to the medical records. So when I do need the records, I have access on the internet and I can look that up.
Okay, so if we asked you to provide us with copies of prior cases, you'd be able to do that?
Objection, Your Honor, she cannot provide medical records of other
Oh.
people. It's a HIPAA laws prevent that.
If the
She
court-
can't give names. No, she cannot.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just talking about cases you testified to.
And objection.
No.
Anyway, that's not the point for here, right? Let's
Thank
move
you.
on.
So are you withdrawing the question?
I'll withdraw.
Okay, thank you. Counsel, I'm going to ask you to use the microphone. I'm having a hard time. There's a
Well,
fan
how's
blowing.
that?
That's
Better?
much better.
I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Goldfarb.
Thank you, Your Honor. Doctor, what is a pediatrician? What is a pediatrician's duties and responsibilities?
The duties and responsibilities of a pediatrician is to evaluate children medically, to be able to obtain medical histories, examine children, and maintain the well-being of children. It might include also educating others on pediatrics. It might include research, depending on which area of pediatrics the pediatrician is practicing at.
Does it include psychological or psychiatric evaluations of children at times?
It does not include a specific psychiatric evaluation, but part of the...
Objection.
What's your objection?
My objection is I tried to go into the area of whether or not she was qualified for psychology, and she's now testifying to it.
She hasn't testified that she's qualified in psychology. She's testified as to what she does as a pediatrician. That was the initial question. Overruled.
Well, you know,
Answer the question.
Thank you. What is a
because he was making an objection while the witness was testifying, and I need to make sure for clarification of the record that the witness indicated that it does not require psychological evaluation. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And I wanted to highlight that a little bit further.
Thank you.
Okay. So part of our training as being a pediatrician, and part of my training as being a child abuse pediatrician, is that there are certain qualifications and certain content specifications that we should meet during our training. So during my 3 years of training as a pediatrician, we were required to study about psychology. There was a section that we are required to study, and there is a section that we're required to sit for and be examined for.
Overruled. Continue.
And be examined for during the American Academy of the American Board of Pediatrics test. So pediatrics has many different subspecialties, and we are supposed to be aware of those many different subspecialties, including psychology and psychiatry, when we sit for that exam. And that's how we become board certified in general pediatrics. In child abuse pediatrics, we also have different areas of qualifications that we have to meet in order to sit for the exam, and in order to be qualified first to sit for the exam, and then to pass that exam as well.
And can you tell us the areas that you have to be qualified in to sit for the exam and to pass the exam for child abuse pediatrics?
For child abuse pediatrics, when I sat for the exam in 2009, we had to have either a fellowship or a subspecialty training in child abuse that was at least for 2 years duration. That training had to meet a certain criteria. So it had to have a research component, it had to have a clinical component, it also had to have different trainings in different aspects of child abuse pediatrics. When we sit for the exam, we're tested on many different areas of child abuse pediatrics, including child physical abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, neglect, and many other different areas, including even statistics, biostatistics, and research. So it is many areas that we have to be involved in, and we have to really educate ourselves and to get training and in order to initially sit for the exam and further on to pass that exam and be certified.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move to admit to have Dr. Nazar recognized as an expert in the area of pediatrics and child abuse pediatrics, and ask that she be permitted to offer her opinion. I'm renewing my motion with the additions of that she has just testified to.
Okay, thank you. In response, briefly, Mr. Dillard.
I'd like to, respond. She had an opportunity to redirect on voir dire. I'd like to have an opportunity to recross on voir dire.
And I'm denying that opportunity. You can make your response with respect to the people's motion to have the witness as an expert in pediatrics and child abuse pediatrics.
Judge, I would object to her being approved as to psychology, psychiatric, sociology, orthopedics, sociology, dermatology, neurodevelopment disabilities of children, emergency, behavioral pediatrics, infectious diseases, adolescent medicine, rheumatology, oncology.
Thank you. This witness has not testified that she has been certified in any of those areas. And the people, if I'm clear, you're not asking for her to be clarified or designated as an expert in any of those areas. Is that correct?
Only the areas that are encompassed by pediatric medicine, which does, of course, include emergency medicine.
And the parties will have an opportunity to cross-examine her with respect to the depth of her knowledge, and not so much the depth of her knowledge, but what she did in this particular case in forming her opinion. Mr. Smith, your response?
I'm going to concur with his objection in total, and I'm also going to add that nothing has been said about whether she's done any research papers that have been published and looked at in the general scientific community. None of that was placed on the record. Basically, we have is a doctor.
They And there was testimony that she has published, but go ahead.
But she didn't talk about what articles they were. She didn't go into the details of what they were.
Did you ask her about the articles?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
Your Honor, I did give,
Hold on, I haven't given you the floor. Mr. Attorney Smith?
Yes. But the reality of it is we have a doctor who's been practicing for a couple of years. She's been placed in a position to, on repeated occasions, help the prosecutor's office. She's here on her own, under subpoena, for the prosecutor's office, to give an opinion in which she never even met with the person that is accused, or is accusing my client and his wife of child abuse.
And you'll have the opportunity to cross-examine with respect to any testimony that she gives regarding the victim in this particular matter.
So I'd just like to reserve the right to, during cross-examination, to have the option to ask the court to revoke her status.
Oh, certainly you can reserve that right, but I am going to qualify Dr. Nazar as an expert in the area of pediatrics and child abuse pediatrics. Ms. Goldfarb, you may proceed with your examination of this witness.
Your Honor, in order to move this along, I did give counsel at the, I believe at the probable cause hearing, a copy of the CV of Dr. Nazar. And, I'm going to now have Dr. Nazar take a look at this document and ask you if they feel the teaching and publications and other information with regard to your qualifications and training and experience, Dr. Nazar.
Objection, Your Honor. She's already been qualified. Now she's going back to voir dire again.
Sustained. Let's keep moving. She's already been qualified as an expert in pediatrics and in child abuse pediatrics. Let's keep moving.
Thank you. Doctor, are you a practicing pediatrician?
Yes, I am.
And where do you practice pediatrics?
I practice at Children's Hospital of Michigan and at Kids Talk Children's Advocacy Center.
And is your primary focus in the area of child abuse pediatrics, or do you do general pediatrics as well?
My primary area is child abuse pediatrics.
Dr. Nazar, I'm going to ask you to speak. Keep your voice up just a little bit louder. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, Your Honor.
And you indicated to the court that among your duties, you were the head of the child protection team for the Detroit Medical Center. Is that correct?
That's right.
And what does it mean to be the director or head of the child protection team for the Detroit Medical Center?
Objection. She never said she was the head of the child protection team.
Yes, she just said she was.
She said she was a member of it.
Overruled. Answer the question.
I'm the chief of the Child Protection Center at Children's Hospital of Michigan, and what that entails is that I'm involved in evaluating children who are suspected of being either child abused or neglected. We review charts on a regular basis, and we review children who come into the hospital with any type of injury. So any child who is admitted to Children's Hospital of Michigan with any type of broken bone, any type of injury like a burn, for example, or not gaining weight. We evaluate those charts, we review them, we perform our medical assessment on a selected patient population that we do our consultations on. It involves working with other subspecialties within the hospital. We work with radiology, we work with the surgeons, and we work with different social work departments at the hospital as well to formulate our opinions. It also includes publications, it includes educating others, including medical students and residents, and it also includes teaching in the field and publishing.
And as the chief of the child protection unit, or team, child protection team at the Detroit Medical Center, do you regularly review charts in order to give an opinion as to whether or not a child is a victim of abuse, neglect, or sexual abuse?
Yes, this is a major part of what we do as a child protection team. We actually have an agreement with the hospital that any patient who is admitted to the hospital with any kind of injury that suspects abuse or neglect, we have to review that chart and determine whether it was accidental or non-accidental.
And child abuse itself, it's a term we all hear.
Objection. She's testifying now.
Can't testify. Your question?
Yes, the question is there a specific meaning to child abuse for you as an expert in the area of child abuse pediatrics? What does that mean?
What child abuse means is that it's either harm or threatened harm that's inflicted on a child. And it includes different types of child abuse, including sexual abuse, physical abuse. It could be emotional abuse. And it also includes different types of neglect, like educational neglect, medical neglect, neglect of supervision, and physical neglect as well.
And those are those all areas that you are trained to evaluate?
Yes, they are.
And do you do that on a regular, do those evaluations on a regular basis as both an employee of Kids Talk and in your duties as the chief of the child protection team at Detroit Medical Center?
Yes, I do.
Are you familiar, doctor, with a term in the medical community known as child torture?
Yes, I am.
And is there a specific definition in the pediatric and medical community for the term child torture?
Yes, there is.
Objection, relatives. The standard for torture is in the Michigan compiled laws, not based on some standard that's in the medical field.
I'm going to allow her to answer the question. Overruled. Answer the question.
Yes, there is a definition of child torture in the medical field.
And can you, this is for demonstrative purposes only, Your Honor, it's not going to be admitted as an exhibit, but the definition, I am offering to publish the definition. Can you tell us what it is?
Objection. We have not seen, we were not given prior to today this demonstrative evidence. Was not delivered to us as part of discovery. Whatever she's getting ready to show
Ms.
up here.
Goldfarb, where are we going with this?
All right, fine. Can you tell us, all right, I'll withdraw that, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Can you tell me the definition of child torture by the pediatric, not the legal community, the pediatric community, please?
Yes, the way we define child torture is that it's a longitudinal experience that the child goes through. It has to encompass at least 2 incidents of physical assault or physical abuse, or 1 prolonged incident of physical abuse. It also has to include different types of psychological maltreatment, including isolation, deprivation. It has to include at least 2 of those to meet the definition of child torture.
And when a pediatrician such as yourself, a child abuse pediatrician, uses the term physical assault, what is the definition of physical assault for a pediatrician and child abuse pediatricians, please?
Objection, once again, it's the legal issue here, not the medical field determination of physical assault.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
We use the definition of physical assault or physical abuse as any inflicted injury to a child, and it might include different forms of physical assaults like beating, hitting, kicking, and it may or may not leave evidence on the child, for example, like bruises, burns, broken bones, and different areas of injury.
Is it expanded to include things such as...
Objection, she's testifying. She says, is it expanded to?
Right.
Objection.
Can't leave the witness. Sustain your next question.
Is there more than the hitting, beating, and burns? Is there more definition of in the pediatric community? Is there additional criteria for the term physical assault?
Objection. She's already testified as to what the
What's your objection,
definition.
Mr. Dillard?
She's already testified as to what the medical field's definition of physical assault. She's already testified to that.
I'm allowing it. Overruled. Answer the question.
It might include different examples of how the physical harm is inflicted on a child. So physical harm could be inflicted by many different ways. It could be inflicted by hitting with an object or hitting against an object. Sometimes it's inflicted by different mechanisms such as excessive exercise. Sometimes it's inflicted as being confined in a very small space. So it is something that inflicts harm. Now, how it does inflict the harm, there are so many examples that could cause that.
Thank you. Doctor, did you have an opportunity to review records from Children's Hospital with regard to Charlie Gotham?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
And did did you have an opportunity to review records from the an admission of June 25th and 26th of 2014?
Yes, I did.
Were there other records from Children's Hospital that you reviewed as well?
Yes.
And were those prior to or subsequent to the 2014 admission?
They're all the records that I reviewed were prior to 2014, and the ones from 2014, in addition to the ones that you mentioned, include the social work consultation that was done during that admission.
Objection, I didn't quite hear that.
I didn't understand what you said
She's
either.
talking
I'm
very
sorry.
fast, Your Honor. It's hard.
Could you
Okay.
just slow down a little bit?
I just said I didn't hear her. Let's not all get our billy clubs out. Dr. Nazar, I'll need you to slow it down just a little. You started talking and you sped up, and so I couldn't understand what you were saying. So, Ms. Goldfarb, could you ask the question again?
Yes. In addition, the question was, did you review records prior to or subsequent to the admission of June of 2014?
They were prior to the admission of June 2014.
And you did prepare a report, is that correct, Doctor?
Yes, it is correct.
And in the report that you prepared, what did you include to form your opinion?
In the report that I prepared, I included several summaries. I included a summary of the emergency department note when Charlie was seen at Children's Hospital of Michigan Emergency Department. I also included a summary of his overnight admission at Children's Hospital of Michigan. I included a summary of the social work evaluation that was done, and I also included a summary of the 2 interviews that were done. One was done by the FBI, and the other one was done by Kids Talk Children's Advocacy Medical Center forensic interviewer.
Doctor, I'm going to ask you to put aside the information you received from the interviews done by the FBI and the interviews done by Kids Talk, and ask if you can form an opinion. I'm sorry, strike that for a moment. Did you also look at some photographs?
Yes, I did.
Were those part of your opinion as well?
Yes, they were.
I'm going to ask you now, Doctor, to put aside the information you may have received from listening to interviews of young Charlie Bethel, either from the FBI or from Kids Talk, and ask you if, based on the medical records alone and the photographs that were part of the record, you were able to form an opinion or a diagnosis regarding Charlie Bethel.
Objection, she's leading the witness.
Overruled. Answer the question.
Yes, I was able to formulate a diagnosis.
Thank you. And did you reach a diagnosis, Doctor, about whether Charlie Bethel V was a victim of child abuse?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. Did you form an opinion?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us, Doctor, why were you able to form a medical opinion about whether Charlie Bethel V was a victim of what is medically referred to as child torture?
Okay, when I reviewed the medical records that were from Children's Hospital of Michigan, I was able to review that Charlie had made disclosures of physical abuse. Charlie had made disclosures at the emergency department, and also...
That's hearsay, Judge. She's talking about the disclosures that the young child victim made.
Is your response?
The disclosures she's speaking of, Your Honor, are part of the medical record. She's talking about what occurred in the emergency department and part of the certified medical records that were already admitted as People's Exhibit Number 1. I've asked her not to testify, and if she has an opinion, putting aside hearsay, that is not part of the medical record.
Objection, I don't know of any exhibit that's been admitted.
It was admitted. We admitted as the People's
medical
Exhibit.
record.
I'm sorry. Number 1, certified medical records.
That was such a
It's still admitted. You objected. I overruled it, and it was admitted. So your objection is overruled. Go forward with your question.
The question is, Doctor, were you able to form an opinion based on your review of medical records and the photographs alone, whether Charlie was a victim of what is medically referred to as child torture.
Yes, I was able to formulate my opinion based on those.
And what was your opinion, doctor?
My opinion was that Charlie was a victim of multiple forms of child abuse. He was a victim of child physical abuse on more than one occasion. He had made disclosures.
Objection, Your Honor. I see no connection when she's talking about generally a victim of child abuse. I'm objecting on behalf of Monique Dillard Bothell only. There's nothing in the medical records that support the statement that Monique Dillard Bothell was involved in any child abuse.
She has not stated who she believed was involved. She's testifying as to what her opinion was, and I'm going to allow her to do so.
Opinion as to who, though? We have two
That's
defendants.
not a question. When you cross-examine the witness, you can ask that question. Continue, please.
Doctor, do you recall the question?
Yes, I do.
Can you continue your answer, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I think you were at the point where you said multiple forms of child abuse, including physical abuse, if I got it all down.
That's right. So he was a victim of child physical abuse. Charlie, when he came to the emergency department, he disclosed that he was beaten by a pipe. He also disclosed when he was admitted to Children's Hospital of Michigan that he was beaten with a pipe on his buttocks and on his chest as well. When he was examined at the emergency department and when he was subsequently examined during his hospitalization overnight at Children's Hospital, he had some marks on his skin. Specifically, he had a mark on his chest. He also had another mark on his buttocks that are consistent with his disclosures. So he was physically abused at more than one occasion. Also, according to the statements that he made when he was seen at the emergency department, he made statements that were concerning for psychological abuse. Specifically, he said that he was asked to be confined in a basement and to stay in a basement for the duration of time that he was missing. He was kept in the basement for 10 days, and that constitutes a diagnosis of psychological maltreatment, specifically isolation. He was isolated in the basement for 10 days. He was homeschooled for a portion of his educational years. He was also threatened to be killed. He was threatened that he would be killed and nobody would know because he's homeschooled. He was also told that that nobody cares about him. So there was constant threat. He was also isolated. He was also deprived of the main rights that children should be provided for. He was deprived of proper food. He was deprived of water. He was also deprived from basic necessities like using the bathroom when he was in the basement. He had held his bowel movements for about 10 days, that he was constipated. He had not passed a bowel movement for 10 days. He also made comments that he was scared. He was afraid. It was noticed that he was anxious. He was scared that his stepmother and his father would find him. He was afraid, and he made that comment several times. So based on him being a victim of physical abuse on at least two different occasions, in addition to the different forms of psychological maltreatment, specifically isolation, intimidation, deprivation, and threat. That's how I reached my diagnosis of child torture.
Thank you, Doctor. Do you know how it was that Charlie arrived? And I'm talking about the young man, Charlie, the 12-year-old. How he arrived at the emergency department.
It said in the medical records that he was brought in by the police.
Okay. And was he able to provide a history when he was at the emergency department and subsequently admitted to the hospital?
Yes, he was able to provide a history on both occasions.
And doctor, was a weight and height obtained for Charlie?
Yes.
I'm going to object under Rule 703 and the modification I talked to you about. This is going on. Initially, it was just like an overview. I agree with counsel. This is hearsay said it should not be predicated on just a medical report. In other words, the prosecutor's trying to get around, I'm thinking now she might be trying to get around calling the actual complainant to the stand. If that's not the case, I'm going to withdraw my objection. She intends.
Is that the case?
No, Your Honor, he's actually here and upstairs.
Okay.
Okay, so
I'll withdraw.
withdraw.
Thanks.
Okay, continue.
Thank you. Doctor, was a wit and height obtained?
Yes, they were.
Thank you. When he was admitted under the name of Charlie Boswell V, if you know?
No, he was admitted under an alias.
And do you know why that is, if you know?
Yes, it was for his own protection.
Are you familiar with the observations, doctor, that were made regarding Charlie's physical condition? And I'm talking, again, Your Honor, I'm referring to Charlie as a young man. Are you familiar with the observations made by the doctors at the emergency department and at Children's Hospital on June 25th or 26th of 2000?
Yes, he was described as being dirty. He was described as having eczema all over his skin and that his skin was itchy. He was also described as being very anxious because he did not want his father or stepmother to find him.
Were there pictures or photographs taken at Children's Hospital?
Yes, there were 2 photos that were taken at Children's Hospital.
Do you know if evidence technicians from Detroit Police took any additional photos?
Yes, they did take additional photos.
Doctor, was Charlie Bothell V able to describe to the medical personnel his living conditions over the previous days?
Yes, he was.
And is that part of the medical records?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us what he described as his living conditions in the previous 10 days?
I'm just going to make a standing objection to the testimony, hearsay testimony. I know you've already ruled on it, but for the rest of it, I think it violates the Rule 703 based on what I told you in the back. I'm not going to belabor the point. I just want to give a standing objection to all the testimony she was taken from a medical document, which purpose was to come in under medical exception, I'm assuming. And this is well far from medical exception. You're taking a particular complainant's testimony out. You're trying to support a medical conclusion by using hearsay evidence like this. Should be talking what the doctors, the medical doctors observed, and what their opinions were, what they felt. But to say to refer back to the child's statements directly over and over again, I think that's objection.
And I'll allow you to place your standing objection, but I will say, Ms. Goldfarb, you have to do the proper foundation, because it sounds like from the way this testimony is going now, you're getting the doctor to tell me what the child said to her, but I need to make sure that we're tying it back to her opinion. I know you asked the overall question probably 7 questions ago, so I just want to make sure that that's where we're going. Ms. Goldfarb?
I understand.
And so you can't cut me off ever, Mr. Dillard. So your standing objection is on the record. Mr.
Yeah,
Dillard?
I want to join in that standing objection.
Okay,
on
thank you.
703.
You may continue.
Ma'am, is part of the medical records the description that Charlie gave of his living conditions over the past 10 days? Is that part of the medical records at the emergency department and at the hospital?
Yes, it is.
Was what was observed with Charlie consistent with the description that he gave? His physical appearance consistent with the description that he gave at the emergency room and at the medical department?
Yes, it was consistent.
Do you recall, Doctor, what he said had been his living conditions over the previous 10 days or so?
Yes. It was described in the emergency department as being in the basement, in a cubbyhole. It was also described during his hospitalization overnight as being disgusting conditions.
Did he tell you anything? Did he tell the emergency room physicians or the physicians at Children's Hospital anything about his food situation over the previous 10 days?
Yes, he was told that he would sneak upstairs for food whenever he had the opportunity.
Did he provide to the medical
Yes, he did.
And what was the name he provided, doctor?
He said it was his stepmom, Monique.
Did Charlie tell the medical personnel at the hospital that reason why he stayed in the basement when he was placed there in the cubbyhole, as he described it?
Yes, he did.
And what did he say?
He said that he was unable to do a certain workout that he was supposed to be doing, and that was the reason that he was sent downstairs to the basement.
Did he say why he stayed in the basement and didn't leave once he was sent down into the cubbyhole?
Yes, he said that he was very afraid of both of his stepmom and his father, so he was very afraid and he stayed there.
Was Charlie's actions in Charlie's behavior at the medical department and at the emergency department and in the hospital consistent with what he described?
Yes, because he was described as being anxious and he was described as being afraid, and he did tell the social worker and he told the medical providers that he was afraid of his stepmother and father finding him.
Excuse me, I have exhibits up here, Your Honor.
Oh, okay.
May I get them?
Yes, you may.
Thank you very
I
much.
didn't get a chance to mark them
Oh,
because
all right,
we broke. You can mark.
thank you.
Did you drop one? This one?
Did I drop one? Oh, I think I just, maybe this. I think this is your, this is, thank you.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes, may I show consult?
Yes, please do.
Judge, we're gonna place objection on the record. The proposed exhibits have been altered with the 1C, 1B, and 1A. These are not the original pictures. These are partial pictures. What's missing is the face and the head and the rest of the part of the body in this picture. If you were to look at our computer in the back, we have the original pictures. These are not the original pictures. Therefore, we're not depicting the full story.
Ms. Goldfarb?
Your Honor, these are part of the original disc. These,
Are they the original pictures?
Hold on, I haven't given you the floor, Attorney Smith.
Sorry, Judge.
there's a disc that has photographs on it. These are printouts from the disc. These are 3 of the printouts from the original disc of photographs that were provided for counsel. If he wants me to put on every single picture from the disc, I'll be glad to do that. This was just the 3 photographs from the
But
disc.
even if you're seeking to do the 3 photographs, you can't give me part of it.
These are not part. These are
Counsel.
these are on the disc.
But counsel, didn't you just indicate that the head is not, the face does not appear?
You know, I'm gonna strike that. There is a picture. I just realized that picture does appear in there. I apologize. But we will provide our own pictures of the same thing, but with the head attached.
Okay, Okay, well, you'll have the opportunity to do that. Okay.
Yes. I have an objection on behalf of Monique Dillard-Lago to the point that there has been no evidence that she inflicted these injuries depicted.
Counsel, it's inappropriate for you to even make that objection at this time. She hasn't even, the witness has not even testified about these pictures. No questions have been asked about the pictures. Madam Prosecutor just wanted to show it to you all before she approached the witness. Please approach the witness with the pictures.
Thank you, I will. Thank you. Doctor, I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibits 1A, 1B, and 1C. And I ask you if you're familiar with what's contained in those exhibits.
Yes, I am familiar with these photos.
And doctor, what is depicted in photograph 1A?
In photograph 1A, I can see the area of the chest. I can see it from the neck till just below the waist. And I can see most of the right arm and most of the left arm.
Do you observe on 1A a mark or a scar of some kind?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us what you observe with regard to a mark or scar?
There is a scar on the area of the sternum, which is the area of the chest in the middle. And it is a scar that looks like a C or a semicircle. And it looks white in color. And it is in the middle area of the chest.
And doctor, did Charlie provide information to the doctors at Children's Hospital and in the medical records about how he obtained that scar on his chest?
Yes, he did.
And how did he say that he obtained that scar on his chest?
He told the medical providers that he was hit with a pipe by his dad.
Did he describe what kind of pipes?
Yes, he called it a PVC pipe.
And doctor, is that scar that you are observing consistent with having been hit with a PCV pipe?
Objection. Now, we're going far beyond her qualifications.
Okay, your objection is sustained. She can't testify as to whether or not.
Well, no, I'm not asking her. Okay, let me see if I can rephrase it.
Please do.
Doctor, is there anything about Charlie's description? Could you rule out that that scar could have been obtained as Charlie described it?
Objectively and purely subjective.
Speculative.
As a doctor, she's going to feel. Well, let me see if I can establish foundation.
Please establish the proper foundation. Your objections are sustained.
Doctor, is part of your duties and responsibilities as a child abuse expert to look at scars and injuries to children and decide whether they're inflicted or not?
Yes, that is part of our duties. Part of my duty is to look at different injuries on the skin, to look at different bruises, to look at different scars, and make the opinion or the determination based on the medical history and based on what the scars look like, whether they are consistent with the history. Furthermore, part of my job is to make the distinction of whether they are inflicted or abusive injuries versus accidental.
And do you also make is it also part of your duties and responsibilities as child abuse expert to determine to try to determine what kind of instrument, including a fist or hand or belt or something else, might have been used to inflict an injury?
Objection, Your Honor. She's not qualified for that, and there's nothing in the record that indicates at this point that that's a possibility. It's a pure speculation. She's not
Counsel,
expert.
she's asking the question, is that part of her job? Is that correct?
I did ask that.
Okay, and so she can answer. Overruled. Is that part of your job?
Yes, it is part of my job, and it is part of my training. So part of our job is to recognize that there are certain patterns of injuries and there are certain patterns of bruises. There are certain inflicted injuries or abusive injuries that might have a specific shape to them or a specific pattern to them, and we are trained to recognize those patterns. There are other injuries that might not have a specific pattern to them. However, we always try and correlate those with the medical.
Your Honor. This is a narrative, Your Honor. It's supposed to be response to questions, not on and on narrative. It's an objection.
Overruled. or are you finished with your answer about what you were trained to do?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
Thank you. Your next question.
Doctor, were you able to determine as part of your expertise whether what you observed in people's proposed exhibit number 1A is consistent with an inflicted or an accidental injury or something else?
Objection would be outside of her scope of expertise.
I join in the objection.
I think the doctor just testified that was part of her
That's part of her training.
and
so,
expertise.
and part of her expertise. And so I'm going to allow her to answer the question.
Yes, I was able to determine that the area of the chest and the scar that he has on his chest is consistent with the mechanism that he had disclosed to the medical providers.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, record, could the witness, elaborate on what was disclosed that she's connecting this to? Because she just said.
So you'll have the opportunity to cross-examine
All right.
the witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the people are moving for admission of people's proposed exhibit number 1A.
Any objection? It
Objection.
hasn't already been noted?
Objection as to Monique Bossel Dillard. There has been, in fact, there was testimony that it was inflicted not by her. Objection as to that being evidence against her.
This will add our previous objections.
Okay, thank you. I'm admitting it.
Thank you. Doctor, what?
Excuse me, Judge. I understand you're admitting it, but are you admitting it as evidence against Monique Dillard Bossel, where the witness testified that
The witness has not testified. That I'm going to admit it and give it the appropriate weight based on the testimony that has been given by the witness. I'm clear on that, Mr. Dillard. Thank you. Please continue, Ms. Olvar.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, Doctor, continuing on to 1B, what is depicted in 1B, please?
In 1B is a photo of the lower back and the buttocks.
And is there any scar, abnormality, or injury that you observed to either the lower back or buttocks in that photograph, which is 1B?
Yes, I do see dry skin on the lower back, and then I see an area of a scar on the left buttocks, which is consistent with the area that was described by the two medical providers at Children's Hospital.
And how would you, is there a particular term for that scar? A medical term, is there a particular medical term for the scar?
objection? She is a dermatologist.
Overruled. Answer the question.
Yes, we would call this a linear scar because it looks like a line. We would also call it a keloid scar because the way that the scar has healed, it has healed with an area of skin that extends beyond the margins of the line. So we call it a keloid scar.
And doctor, are keloid scars the result of any kind of scratch or injury, or is there a particular?
Objection. That's leading, Judge.
Ms. Goldfarb, ask your question without leading. Your question.
Is there any? Are keloid scars the fact that a injury heals in a keloid scar, does that indicate anything regarding the severity of the underlying injury?
It does not. Sometimes in certain children or in certain adults, the scar might...
Your Honor, she answered it does not. And she's going on to testify about something else. She says it does not.
You've answered the question. Thank you. Your next question.
Thank you. Are you able to make a determination based on your observations whether or not that scar that you observed on the buttocks is consistent with an inflicted injury or not?
Based on the scar and his history, I can say that the scar is consistent with his history.
And do you recall the history that he provided with regard to that scar?
Yes.
Emergency department. What was that, doctor?
He told the medical provider that he was beaten with a pipe on his buttocks.
Did he indicate who beat him, doctor?
Yes, he indicated it was his father.
Thank you. where he had lived for the past several years.
Objection, leading.
Overruled. Answer the question.
He told the medical providers that he was living with his father and his stepmother.
Is it part of a, typically part of a pediatric exam to get a history from the child?
Yes.
What sort of history would you want, would you typically get for a child, for a pediatric exam or a child abuse exam?
We would ask the child if he has any symptoms that he's complaining of, and we would ask the child if what brought him to the emergency department, why he was brought, and any complaints that he's complaining of, how he feels, if he has pain in any area, if he has any previous medical illnesses, if he has any times in the past that he was admitted to the hospital. Also, part of that is asking him whether he had surgeries in the past, asking him about his immunizations, asking him about a social history of who lives in the home, and asking him about school as well. So we do ask a very general history pertaining to what brought him to the emergency department, in addition to all his medical issues.
Objection to we.
Continue, Ms. Goldfire.
Thank you. Was a social history with regard to Charlie's education obtained at the emergency room?
Yes, it was.
And what was this history with regard to his education, if you know?
He told the providers that he was homeschooled for the past 2 years.
And doctor, would you agree with the proposition that homeschooling is a parental decision?
Yes, it is.
And not in and of itself abusive?
That's right.
Thank you. Based on what did Charlie tell any more about his social situation in relation to the homeschooling at the emergency department or at Children's Hospital, if you recall?
I only remember that he mentioned the homeschooling.
Doctor, assuming hypothetically now that a child between the ages of 10 and 12 was not only homeschooled, but had been confined to his home for the majority of the time over the 2 years. He had no friends, he had no contact with peers, this is a hypothetical, Your Honor, no outside recreational or social activities.
Objection.
Let her finish the question. There's no question on the floor.
Would that be a consideration for a diagnosis of child abuse or child torture? It's a hypothetical, Your Honor, and she is qualified to answer whether that.
And she can answer.
Thank you.
I just want to I have an objection.
Go
It's
ahead.
leading. There's no evidence to support that. She's not an expert in homeschooling. Objection.
And lack of proper foundation.
Okay, thank you. Overruled. Answer the question.
Yes, it is a concern of us, and it would be a concern. We would be concerned about isolating a child. So children are supposed to have normal social interactions. They are supposed to enjoy their peers. They're supposed to be schooled in a proper way. So yes, homeschooling is a parental choice. However, when it's combined with different isolating methods of the child, it would constitute isolation. And we have found that in many cases of child torture, children were being homeschooled as a method of isolating them as well from their peers.
Thank you. Doctor, do you recall if Charlie provided any information regarding his routine to the emergency department or to the doctors at Children's Hospital?
He did not provide a routine at the Children's Hospital of Michigan.
Okay. Assuming, doctor, hypothetically that a child between the ages of 10 and 12 had an enforced exercise routine which involved twice a day doing 100 sit-ups, twice a day, 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, 20 arm curls, 100 jumping jacks, and 4,000 or 5,000 revolutions on an elliptical machine. Would that be, assuming hypothetically that is the child's routine, and that occurred 7 days a week, would that be a consideration for a diagnosis of child abuse or child torture?
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of foundation. There's no evidence that she has any experience with physical education.
There's been a foundation that she's been certified as an expert in child abuse and pediatrics. Overruled.
I concur with this objection.
Yes, it would be a concern of us. It would actually be considered to be excessive exercise because the child would be exercising much more than what would be anticipated for a child to do.
Okay, and is excessive exercise considered in the definition from the Academy of in the pediatric definition of child torture?
Objection, Your Honor. She's already testified as to that answer, and this is a leading question.
Ms. Goldfarb, ask your question again.
Why is it a consideration for an expert in child abuse and child torture?
It is a consideration because excessive exercise actually falls under physical assaults or physical injuries, which fall under the diagnosis of child torture. So it is a type of physical injury that's inflicted on a child when it's excessive.
Thank you. Doctor, besides the medical records that we were discussing at Children's Hospital for the date of June 25th of 2014, did you examine other medical records from Children's Hospital, the Detroit Medical Center?
I looked at other admissions that Charlie had at Children's Hospital of Michigan from 2012 as well as 2013, and I looked at his emergency department visits during those time periods.
Were you able to gather information by looking at those records about Charlie's growth and weight during the periods between 2012 and 2014?
I apologize. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Were you able to gather information from looking at all of the records at Children's Hospital between the years 2012 and 2014? Were you able to gather information about Charlie's growth and weight during those years?
Yes, his weight was documented during all those visits.
And what information were you able to gather? What did the record show you with regard to growth and weight?
I was able to determine that he had lost 11 kilograms, close to 25 pounds, over the past, compared to January 2009. I was also able to determine that he had not gained weight for the past 2 years.
And beginning with the records in 2009, was Charlie ever obese?
No, he was not considered obese.
Does the weight loss that you described give you information about whether Charlie over the years between 2009 and 2014 had been given adequate food in relation to the exercise routine that had been provided with adequate food? I'll leave it in.
Objection, Your Honor. That's purely speculative. Certainly there may be some connection as to exercise and weight, but there's been no testimony of any denial of any food.
Okay, Ms. Goldfarb, you're going to have to clean that question up. Go ahead.
Does the weight loss give you any information about whether he's been adequately nourished over the period of time where he failed to gain weight in the past 2 years and had lost 25 pounds over the 5-year period that you described?
Objection is purely speculative.
No, she can testify as to whether or not it gave her any information. You may testify. Answer.
Children are supposed to gain weight from month to month and from year to year. So when children are provided with sufficient amount of calories, then they will gain weight. According to his records, when I reviewed them throughout those years, he did not have any medical condition to explain any weight loss or to explain any drop in weight. He had no medical conditions to explain that. So the only explanation that I have from reviewing his medical records to explain his weight loss is that he was not provided with enough calories throughout that time. It could be that the food was low in calories or that the exercise was too much in comparison to the caloric intake or to the amount of calories that he was provided with. And that's how children lose weight.
Objection. She's just established that it was speculative because there are 2 or 3 different bases for the loss of the weight.
Overruled. Continue with your next question.
Doctor, what if Charlie do you want to see a child between the ages of 10 and 12 lose weight when they're overweight, when they're actually way too much or are heavy?
No, so in his case, he was actually not overweight. He was, we look at the body mass index, and his body mass index only was at 85% only one time. All the other times he was not considered to be overweight or to be considered obese. And in children in that age, we never have them lose that much weight over a short period of time like that. We actually have them grow into their own weight. So we always encourage physical activity for children. If they are overweight or obese, we have them cut down on calories a little bit so that they would grow into their weight and not really lose that significant amount of weight like Charlie did.
Your Honor, at this time, the people are moving for admission of people's proposed exhibit number 1C. I think I forgot to move for its
It was
admission.
1B.
Or which one was the buttocks? 1B?
The buttocks was 1B.
I'm sorry. At this
Okay.
time, the people are moving for admission.
Any objection?
Objection as to Monique Dillard.
Okay, thank you. And
that
then,
it was not
We took.
okay, thank
testified
you.
that it was not done by her.
Okay, then you had the opportunity to cross-examine the witness, Mr. Dillard. I'm allowing the photo to come in, and it will be the people's exhibit number 1B.
I just want one more second, and I may hear no more.
Ms. Pierce, you okay? Yes, let me know when you're ready. Okay.
Doctor, you mentioned that one that a child abuse expert, pediatric expert, would be looking for patterns of systemic abuse. Do you recall mentioning that?
Objection. She never said anything about any systemic anything.
I don't recall any, you have to stop gesturing, tell your client to stop gesturing. I don't recall any testimony about any systemic, so just lay the foundation if you're seeking to ask a question about some systemic abuse.
Are you,
Sustained.
is there some, as a child abuse expert, do you look for patterns of abuse or a system of abuse when you're evaluating a child?
We look for different patterns of child maltreatment because they're known to coexist together. So if we see any type of maltreatment, we look for another.
And do you have an opinion, doctor, about whether Charlie was subjected to one or more kinds of child abuse?
He was subjected to more than one kind of child abuse. He was subjected to child physical abuse, and he was also subjected to child psychological abuse in the forms of isolation, intimidation, and deprivation.
And, Your Honor, with that, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for cross-exam. Mr. Dillard?
Doctor, can doctors disagree as to diagnosis?
Yes, I can.
Can doctors disagree as to prognosis?
Generally not.
Pardon me?
Generally not.
Can doctors disagree as to treatment?
Yes, they can.
Now, do you know who the child victim's primary care provider was?
I recall his name was Dr. Mosby, but I'm not sure about the correct spelling.
And I would assume that you never looked at any records as they relate to Dr. Mosby.
I only looked at one record from that clinic, which was after his hospitalization at Children's.
My question is, did you look at any medical records as they relate to Dr. Mosby?
No, I did not.
Are you aware and do you normally, as part of your methodology, give much priority or credit to the primary care doctor's opinions?
Do you mind being more specific? I really did not understand your question.
A child may have a primary care doctor who treats the child over a long period of time. Do you get, as part of your methodology, do do you give support to the primary care provider's prognosis, diagnosis, or treatment?
It depends on the case that I'm dealing with. Sometimes we would contact them, and it really depends on the case.
Okay. In this particular case, did you give any support, in your opinions, the prognosis, diagnosis, or treatment schedule of the child victim's primary care doctor, Dr. Mosby?
Objection, Your Honor. The question is unclear. I don't know what he means by support, but if the question is, did she contact them or review it, I think she's asked and answered that question.
Okay. I'll rephrase it.
Rephrase it.
Did you contact him?
No, I did not contact him.
Did you read any of his medical reports?
No, I did not read his medical report.
Do you have any personal knowledge of his prognosis for the child? Any prognosis?
I don't understand. Prognosis of an illness or
Prognosis of an illness for the child.
I'm sorry, which illness are you asking about?
Are you aware of any prognosis that Dr. Mosby may have had for the illness?
Objection. She hasn't testified. There's no testimony. There's no foundation that there was a prognosis or an illness associated with Charlie Bottle of Fifth. So there's no foundation.
Well, then answer the question. That's an easy answer.
No.
Answer the question.
No.
Thank you.
Are you aware that there are medical records from Dr. Mosby that the prosecution has?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Are you aware that Dr. Mosby gave a diagnosis as for obesity for the child victim?
No, I'm not.
Are you aware that Dr. Mosby ordered an exercise regimen for the child victim?
No, I'm not.
Are you aware that as far as Dr. Mosby was concerned, the child, based on his evaluation, was obese back in 2011?
No, I'm not.
Now, the normal body weight index for normal is normally 18.5 to 24.9, correct?
No, that's incorrect.
That's not the normal BMW?
No, because you're referring to adults, and we're talking about a child here.
What is the normal for child?
There's no normal for child. We have to plot them on a growth curve, and we have to plot them on a body mass index.
Okay, so there is no normal.
We actually talk about a percentile for a child versus a number, and if you'd like, I would go over that.
Okay, is there a normal for a child for weight?
There's a range.
Just asking you a question.
Don't cut her off, Mr. Dillard. Answer the question.
There is a range of weight, and that depends on the age, and it also depends on the sex of the child.
So age is a factor?
Age, yes, is a factor.
Now, in this particular case, did not the child have the same weight for almost 2 years?
That's right.
And isn't it true that the only reason that the percentile changed is that the child's age changed?
Do you mind clarifying? Are you talking about the percentile for weight or for BMI?
For weight. The percentile for weight that you have talked about, it changed only because his age changed. Isn't that correct?
Yes, so the percentile changes.
Is it yes?
Yes.
Okay. Because he had the same weight for almost 2 years prior, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Now, let's go back to your methodology. Now, is your methodology scientific?
Objection, Your Honor.
It's cross-exam, Judge.
It's cross-exam. I'm going
There's
to
no
allow it.
foundation for the question. What does that mean?
I'm getting ready to
If
get
she
in there.
knows what it means, she'll answer it. And if she doesn't, she's capable of saying she has no idea what he's talking about. Answer the question.
Okay, you're a medical doctor, right?
That's right.
And that's a science, right?
That's right.
Okay. Is your methodology scientific?
I don't understand which methodology you're referring to.
So you don't know what scientific means?
I do.
Objection, Your Honor. He misstated her answer.
Sustained. That wasn't her answer.
You do not know what a scientific methodology is?
I know what it means, but I'm just asking you, is it in the context of my exam or my evaluation, or
I'm just
I
asking
just don't.
Excuse me. I'm just asking you as for definition purposes. Do you understand what a scientific methodology is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. It has to be tested, right?
Not necessarily, no.
So you're saying that a scientific methodology does not have to be tested by others?
Not all the scientific methodologies are tested. Some of them are from experience, some of them are from testing. Not every single thing in science or medicine can be tested.
Okay. Let me ask you, what is the error rate in your methodology?
I can't answer that question.
Now, what authority do you have to substantiate your methodology?
Objection, Your Honor. There is no foundation for what she already said. Are you talking about methodology for different areas?
The question is vague. Mr.
Okay,
Dillard,
I'll
ask
make-
a relevant question,
okay.
please, that's not so vague.
What authority do you rely on to substantiate your methodology as being generally accepted in pediatrics?
What
Objection.
methodology sustained?
Your methodology that you use to form your opinion.
Objection again, Your Honor.
And I'm sustaining that there has been no foundation. She has not stated on this record what her methodology is.
Judge.
Mr. Dillard,
Judge,
your next question.
your methodology includes looking at the medical records, correct? The medical records of the child victim. Your method, how you form your opinion is based on looking at the medical records of the child victim.
Looking at the medical records is one thing that I would
Okay,
use
that's
to
one.
reach my
Don't
diagnosis.
cut her off,
Okay,
Mr.
that's
Dillard.
one thing.
Mr. Dillard,
I will.
don't cut the witness off.
And I would ask that he not be argumentative.
Thank you. Your next question. This is cross-exam. Next
Second
question.
question. It includes looking at interviews of the FBI agent and the Kid Talk interviewer.
I looked at the interviews in this case, but it is not in every case that I would look at the interview. It depends on the case that I'm looking at and reviewing.
I'm only asking you questions as to the methodology that you used in this particular case.
Because she already has stated that her opinion was based. I asked her if she could offer an opinion, putting aside what she saw in the Kids Talk interview and with any other interview. So what? And she said she could offer an opinion, putting that aside. So it's
And
irrelevant.
she did, but she can answer the question as to, and Mr. Dillard, I certainly can't tell you how to cross-examine the witness, but once you establish or she answers the question about her methodology, go ahead. I can't tell you how to ask your question, but go ahead.
Looking at the medical records is a part of your methodology to arrive at your opinion in this case.
Yes, it is.
Looking at the interviews of the FBI agent and the Kids Talk was a part of your methodology to come to your opinion, correct?
Yes.
Looking at the photos that were presented to you was a part of your methodology in arriving at your opinion.
Yes.
Looking at the medical history was a part of your methodology in arriving at your opinion.
Yes.
Now, talking about the interviewer, the FBI interviewer only, do you know the qualifications of that FBI interviewer?
Objection, it's not relevant. She's already said that the opinion that she offered to this court was not based on the FBI interview.
And Ms. Goldfarb, that's fine, but she just testified that she also came to, that the medical records, the interviews, photos, and the medical history did play a part in her opinion, and so she can answer the question. That was on your direct examination. He has a right to cross-examine her. If she looked at some other things, your question was specific as to formulate an opinion, notwithstanding the interviews. You're at liberty to ask that question during direct, but on cross-examination, he can ask, did you look at something else? Did something else influence your opinion? She said, yes, I'm allowing it. Overruled.
Well, you're
Ask, no. Answer the the question.
Do you know the qualifications of the FBI interviewer?
No, I don't know the qualifications.
Do you know the educational standards of the FBI interviewer?
No, I do not.
Do you know the competency of the FBI interviewer?
No, I do not.
Talking about the kids talk interviewer. Do you know the qualifications of that interviewer?
I know that they have to be trained in the
I
front.
didn't ask you that, ma'am.
Don't cut her off. Ask your
Objection.
question, Mr. Dillard.
Objection. Do you know?
You're objecting to your own question that you
No,
asked the
I'm
witness.
just objecting to her just not being responsive to my question.
She was attempting to be responsive.
And you cut her off. Don't cut her off. Your
Yeah.
question.
Do you know the qualifications of the kid talk interviewer?
I know that they have to be trained in the forensic interviewing protocol of Wayne County.
Do you have personal knowledge of the qualifications of the kid talk interviewer?
Objection irrelevant, Your Honor.
She just answered the question. She said she knows that they have to be trained in forensic interview. They have to have that type of training. Your next
Do
question.
you know the education of the kids talk interviewer?
Objection irrelevant.
Do you know?
No, I do not.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Keep moving.
Do you know the competency level of the kid talk interviewer?
Objection irrelevant.
I'm overruling. Answer it.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, as a part of your methodology, you did not interview the child victim in this case.
I did not interview Charlie.
You did not do a physical examination of the child victim in this case.
No, I did not.
You did not interview the parents of the child victim in your methodology. did you?
Objection, Your Honor. First of all, you can't interview parents who are charged with crimes or potential suspects. So to ask her whether she interviewed them.
Then the answer is going to be 2 seconds. Did you interview the parents?
No, I did not, Your Honor.
Keep moving, please, Mr. Dillard.
Did you read the police report as a part of your methodology?
No, I did not.
Did you read any other written statements of any witnesses as part of your methodology?
No, I did not.
Did you look at any x-rays as a part of your methodology?
No, I just looked at the imaging reports that were done years ago.
As a part of your methodology to form your opinions, do you believe that parent intent is a valid consideration?
Objection, Your Honor, as to her belief. This is she's testifying as an expert in her opinion. Her belief is irrelevant.
Lay the proper foundation. Sustained.
Is parent involvement in a child abuse case relevant?
I can't answer that question. May you make it more specific? I really don't understand.
Have there been cases where you had child abuse where you interviewed parents?
Yes, there are cases that I do obtain my medical history from the parents.
All right. So, parent involvement is a legitimate consideration in reaching an opinion as it relates to child abuse.
It depends on the case. In some cases, we do obtain our medical history from the parents. In others, we review the charts.
Did you do so in this case? Did you interview the parents?
I did not obtain medical history from the parents, no.
I didn't ask you. Okay, I asked you, did you interview the parents?
No, I did not interview them.
Did you interview Monique Dillard Boffel?
No, I did not interview Monique.
Now, let me ask you, is the prior behavior of the child victim relevant to your methodology to reach your opinion?
I don't understand that question.
Do you look at the prior history of a child when you're making a determination as to child abuse?
I look at the prior medical history.
If the child has a psychiatric illness, is that relevant?
Yes, it is.
If a child has a behavioral pathology, is that relevant?
I'm sorry, are you asking me, is it relevant to my diagnosis or is it relevant to the history taking? I'm not clear.
Is it relevant to your methodology that you use?
Objection, Your Honor. The methodology, she already Is it relevant to her diagnosis of child abuse? Then maybe that's a question. But to methodology?
Clean the question up, Mr. Dillard.
Listen,
Mr. Dillard, you can't ever talk with me or over me. The witness has said at least twice she doesn't understand your question. So let's give her a question that's relevant and that she understands.
English is not your primary language, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay.
The next question.
When I talk, listen to me closely. When I talk about methodology, I'm talking about your methodology to form child abuse opinions. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do understand what you're saying.
Now, is child pathology relevant to that methodology?
Again, I don't understand what you mean by child pathology. Child pathology could
Take, for
mean so
example-
many different things.
Okay, excuse me.
Child pathology could mean so many different things. I think your questions are not specific, so I cannot answer them with a yes or no. I'm sorry.
Right. If a child is assaultive, would that be relevant?
Again, what do you mean by an assaultive child?
What we've talked about, my question simply is the methodology that you arrive at for child abuse. I'm asking you, you talked about the parent aspect of that. Sometimes you interview them, sometimes you don't. Now I'm asking you about the child victim. And I'm asking you, you've given prior testimony about the history of the child. You talked about social involvement,
Mr.
medical
Dillard,
history.
ask your question.
Okay,
please.
now, that the child is assaultive, that has a history of assault.
She's already, and it said that assaultive can mean so many different things.
He hasn't finished the question. Let him finish the question. Finish the question, Mr. Dillard.
If the child assaults another member of the family in the household, would that be relevant to your methodology in forming your opinion for child abuse?
So the question is very vague. So assaultive could mean so many different things. Are we talking about a child who's acting out? Are we talking about physical assault, sexual assault? What exactly do you mean by assaultive? That's one thing that I don't understand. The other thing that I'm trying to explain to you is that...
Objection?
No.
Not
Continue.
responsive.
Continue.
The other thing that I'm trying to explain to you is that there are certain things that we take into consideration when we perform our medical history. So, for example, if he's been admitted to the hospital before, if he has a psychiatric illness, if he has any behavioral illnesses, those would affect how we evaluate the child and would affect our recommendations and our diagnosis. It might not affect my diagnosis of physical abuse because a child who has psychiatric illnesses might be even more vulnerable and he might have other needs that I need to address. That's how all of this interplays in the medical history taking, the physical exam and the evaluation. But I cannot take one component and say that that would affect the diagnosis of physical abuse, for example, or would alter my diagnosis. If he was physically assaultive...
You answered the question. Go ahead, your next question.
Physical assault by the child victim, would that be relevant to your methodology in forming your opinion as to child abuse?
Asked and answered.
Asked and answered. The witness has already stated that she can't take one component.
With psychiatric,
Mr. Dillard, if you cut me off one more time, we're going to have a real problem in the courthouse today on a Friday. You may ask your next question.
psychiatric illness, is that relevant to your methodology in forming an opinion as to child abuse?
No, if the child has a psychiatric illness, that would not alter my diagnosis of him being physically abused or not.
Would it alter your opinion as to him being mentally abused?
Do you mind repeating the question again?
You said it would not alter your opinion as to him being physically abused, the fact that he had a prior mental illness. I'm asking you that, would that affect your methodology as a result as it relates to mental illness or mental abuse, excuse me?
So are you asking me if a child's psychiatric illness, does that affect my diagnosis of him being psychologically abused or not?
Yes.
So my question is no.
Okay.
My answer, sorry, is no.
All right. Do you know that the child victim had psychiatric illness in this particular case?
I know that he has psychological behaviors that were concerning to the psychiatrist that saw him at Children's Hospital, but he was not given a psychiatric diagnosis.
Okay. Are you aware that his primary care doctor, Dr. Mosby, diagnosed him as having a psychiatric illness?
I did not look at Dr. Mosby's records.
So are you aware that Dr.
Your Honor,
Mosby...
objection. What is the psychiatric diagnosis that he is speaking
Well,
of?
it's not relevant at this point because the witness has indicated she did not review Dr. Mosby's records, so she doesn't know what it is, and in her opinion, it didn't even exist. Keep moving.
Okay. Are you aware that he had been diagnosed as ADH?
No, I'm not.
Would that alter your opinion as to whether or not he was mentally abused?
No, it would not.
Are you aware of the history of the child as it relates to his education experiences?
I'm aware of the history that was mentioned in the medical records.
Are you aware that the child had assaulted other children in school?
No, I'm not aware.
Were you aware that the child...
Objection, Your Honor. There is no foundation for that question. I would ask that it be stricken. Now, if he's going to ask hypothetically if there was a history of assaults in school, if that would affect a diagnosis, that's one thing. But to say, are you aware that he has done something without any foundation is an improper question. There is no foundation for such a question. There's no evidence.
And it is, and I'm going to give it the appropriate weight in any weight at all because there's no evidence on his record that the child had assaulted someone in school.
I understand that, Judge, and let me make
Your
an
next
offer.
question.
Judge, may I make an offer of proof?
You can make your next question. You can ask your next question.
Are you aware that the child was hostile to authority figures and teachers in the educational environments that he was in?
Objection, Your Honor. And there is no foundation.
And Ms. Goldfarb, I'm going to allow your objection to be continuing, and I'm going to allow the witness to answer the question, and I'm going to give it the appropriate weight. Please understand that the court is very well aware that the questions that are being asked are just questions. There's no evidence, no testimony on this record that proves the underlying issue, that he assaulted someone, some other kids, or that he had some type of hostile behavior toward authoritative figures. Mr. Dillard, your next question. I'm sorry, did you answer the question?
No, I didn't answer, but my answer is no.
Thank you.
Are you aware that the child had been often lied to not only his parents but also to his teachers?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Your objection is already noted.
Are
And it's
you
a standing objection.
Are you aware at all of the Dr. Mosby, his principal care provider's treatment protocol for the child victim?
No, I did not look at his records.
Now, did you look at, when you looked at the medical records at DMC, did you look at any of the blood work of the child victim?
Yes, I did.
Was it normal?
Yes, it was.
In looking at the medical records of the child at DMC, was the child's blood pressure normal?
I don't recall his blood pressure results.
What about his oxygen level?
I don't remember the value.
What about do you recall whether or not the child had any infections?
He did not have any infections. He had, I'm sorry, would it be okay if I answer that again?
Yes.
If you're referring to scabies, he was diagnosed with scabies at the emergency department. I just wasn't sure what kind of infections you were referring to.
Are you absolutely positive that he was diagnosed with scabies at DMC?
The diagnosis of scabies was listed as a possible diagnosis, so I'm not 100% sure of that diagnosis.
Were there any other infections that you knew of?
Not that I can remember.
Are you saying that a weight, let me ask you this, are you aware of the physical regiments of, let's say, a football player?
No, I'm not aware of the physical regiments.
Are you aware of the physical regiments of a baseball player?
No, I'm not.
Are you aware of the physical
Objection.
regiments?
It's irrelevant. The regiments of football, baseball, or any other athlete is irrelevant to the enforced exercise on a 12-year-old boy.
I will restate.
Okay,
Are
thank
you-
you, because the objection is sustained. It's not relevant.
Are you aware of the physical regiments of 12-year-olds in Pop Warner football?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. It's
Irrelevant.
not relevant. Your next question,
Can I make an offer of proof?
counsel. It's not relevant.
Can I-
Keep moving. No,
can-
your next question.
I cannot make an offer of proof.
Your next question.
Okay. What about a 12-year-old playing basketball?
Objection, Your Honor, as to relevance.
Mr. Diller, how are these questions relevant? Are you indicating that the child victim was a basketball, baseball, football player, and homeschooled?
Judge, we've had this witness testify to this court that a physical exercise regimen can cause weight loss. And therefore, that is one of the criteria that she made a determination.
She
that
said
this child-
excessive. So
Okay.
if that's your offer of proof, if the testimony was excessive. And so I'm sustaining the objection. It's not relevant. Keep moving.
Okay. Is 100 sit-ups excessive for a 12-year-old Pop Warner football player?
Objection as to relevance. I don't know what Pop Warner means, but
Football, 12-year-old.
objection as to relevance.
It's not relevant. You can ask that question differently, Mr. Dillard, but it's not relevant to whoever Pop Warner is or.
You are aware that children are involved in physical exercise.
Yes, I am aware.
And you're aware that sometimes children are involved in certain sports, like
Yes, I am aware of that.
football,
Yes.
baseball,
Yes, I am aware of that.
basketball,
Yes.
hockey.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as a part of their training regiments, 12-year-olds.
Objection,
I
it's
haven't
not
finished
I don't know the
relevant.
question.
I
I
haven't
don't know the
finished my
question.
question. As part of their exercise regimen, let's use football as an example. A 12-year-old will do 100 sit-ups, 7 days a week.
Objection as to relevance.
How is that relevant? And have you established that she has knowledge of what a 12-year-old football player does?
Well, Judge, the relevancy is that she's made a statement as to sit-ups, arm curls, are factors that she suggests are excessive exercise routines.
But
And
your
so I'm
question
posing
is
the
you're
question.
asking a question with respect to a football player or a basketball player. How would this witness know? She's not a sports coach. She's
Well,
a doctor.
Then she should say no.
It's not relevant.
Well,
Keep going, Mr. Dillon. Your next question.
Are you aware of the exercise regimens that occur for 12-year-olds in military schools?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Do children always tell the truth?
I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Does weight loss always constitute child abuse?
No, it does not always constitute child abuse.
Can a loss of weight regimen be a valid treatment for obesity?
It depends on whether we're talking about children or adults and how old they are and how much weight is lost.
Do you have any idea how much food a child has to consume before abuse? How much food a child does not consume before child abuse occurs?
We don't just depend on the amount of food consumed. We have to look at how many calories the child is taking in and how much exercise the child is doing. And we also look at the weight and the height. So there are so many other factors that we look at to determine whether that is child abuse or not.
Is Exhibit 1 the medical records that you reviewed?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Are the discharge instructions present there?
Do you mind please giving me a second to locate them?
No problem.
Yes, I do see the discharge instructions.
At discharge, what medications were given to the child?
He was given 3 different types of medications. He was given a cream